Thursday morning hit our house like a freight train carrying chaos and cheap perfume. Amanda was in full hurricane mode, tearing through our bedroom like a woman possessed, throwing clothes around and muttering curses that would make a sailor blush. I watched from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, as my wife of 8 years transformed into something I barely recognized. "Nick, have you seen my blue blazer? The one with the silver buttons?" She was practically diving into our closet, tossing hangers aside with the fury of someone late for their own execution. "Hanging in the guest room," I said, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "You put it there Tuesday night after that dinner with your boss." She shot me a look that could have melted steel. "Why didn't you tell me that yesterday?" "Because you didn't ask yesterday." I kept my voice level, neutral. After 8 years of marriage, I'd learned that Thursday morning, Amanda was a completely different species from Tuesday evening Amanda. Thursday morning, Amanda was all sharp edges and accusations, ready to blame me for everything from traffic jams to global warming. She rushed past me, her perfume hitting me like a wall. It was stronger than usual, more expensive smelling, the kind of scent you wear when you want to make an impression. I filed that detail away in the back of my mind, along with about 1,000 other little things that had been adding up over the past few months. "I've got that big presentation today," she called from the guest room. "The one I've been working on for weeks. Richard is going to be there, and if this goes well, I might finally get that promotion to senior account manager." Richard, her boss, the man she'd been mentioning a lot lately, always with a little too much enthusiasm in her voice. Richard thinks this, Richard says that, Richard believes I have real potential. I'd met him a few times at company parties, a smooth-talking guy in his 50s with perfect teeth and a handshake that lingered just a beat too long when he met wives. Amanda rushed back into the bedroom, blazer in hand, and started applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon. Her hands were shaking slightly, which was unusual. Amanda never got nervous about presentations. She was good at her job, confident, always prepared, but today something was different. "What time's your meeting?" I asked, genuinely curious. 9:30. But I want to get there early, review my notes one more time. She was applying lipstick now, a shade of red I didn't recognize. When had she bought new lipstick? "Jake's going to be there too." Jake Morrison, my best friend since high school, my former best friend, if I was being honest with myself. We'd grown apart over the past year, ever since he'd started working in the same downtown district as Amanda. He'd been coming around the house more often lately, always with some excuse about wanting to catch up, but spending most of his time talking to Amanda about work stuff I couldn't follow. "Jake's involved in your presentation?" This was news to me. Not directly. He works for a different company, but they're potential partners for this project. Richard thought it would be good to have him there for the client relations perspective. She was talking fast, the words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed them. "It's all very professional, very strategic." Professional? Strategic. 2 words Amanda had been using a lot lately when she talked about Jake. She grabbed her purse, her phone, her car keys, and headed for the door. I followed her to the kitchen, watching as she grabbed a piece of toast and took exactly 2 bites before tossing the rest in the trash. Amanda never wasted food. She was the type of person who'd finish every crumb on her plate and then eye yours to see if you were going to finish your fries. "Wish me luck," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. Her lips barely touched my skin, like she was kissing a distant relative at a funeral. "Good luck," I said, but she was already out the door. I stood in the kitchen, listening to her car start up and pull out of the driveway, and that's when I saw it. Her laptop, sitting right there on the counter next to the coffee maker, plugged in and charging. Amanda's laptop, which contained her entire presentation, all her notes, everything she needed for the most important meeting of her career. For a moment, I just stared at it. Amanda was probably halfway to downtown by now, driving through morning traffic, probably running through her presentation in her head, completely unaware that she'd forgotten the one thing she absolutely couldn't do without. I could call her. Should call her. But her phone would be in her purse, and she never answered while driving. She'd get to her office, realize she'd forgotten it, and have to drive all the way back home. She'd be late, flustered, probably blame me somehow for not reminding her to take it. Or I could surprise her. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. I could drive downtown, bring the laptop directly to her office, maybe even stick around to wish her luck before the big presentation. It would be romantic, thoughtful, the kind of gesture that might remind us both why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Amanda had been distant lately, cold, always finding reasons to work late or go out with her girlfriends. Maybe this was exactly what our marriage needed. A reminder that I still cared, that I was still paying attention. I unplugged the laptop, grabbed my keys, and headed for my truck. The drive downtown took 25 minutes through morning traffic. Amanda worked in one of those glass and steel towers that had sprouted up in the business district over the past decade, all clean lines and reflective surfaces that made you feel small just looking at them. I'd been there a few times for company parties and holiday events, but never during regular business hours. The place always made me feel out of place, like my work boots and calloused hands were somehow contaminating their pristine corporate environment. The parking garage was a maze of concrete and fluorescent lights, filled with BMWs and Mercedes and other cars that cost more than I made in a year. I found a visitor spot on the third level and made my way to the elevators, Amanda's laptop tucked under my arm like a peace offering. The lobby was all marble and chrome, with a security desk manned by a guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He barely glanced up when I walked in, just waved me toward the elevators like I belonged there. I guess carrying a laptop was enough of a credential in a place like this. I knew Amanda's office was on the 12th floor, and I knew she'd mentioned the conference room was right down the hall from her desk. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have, my reflection staring back at me from the polished steel doors. I looked tired, older than my 38 years, like a man who'd been carrying weight he didn't know how to put down. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 12th floor, and I took a deep breath, preparing my surprise entrance. Maybe I'd make some joke about being her personal delivery service, or tell her she owed me a fancy coffee for saving her presentation. Amanda always liked it when I was clever, when I could match her quick wit with something unexpected. The doors slid open with a soft mechanical whisper, and my world exploded into 1,000 pieces. There, maybe 15 feet away, standing in the hallway outside what had to be the conference room, was my wife. She was pressed against the wall, her arms wrapped around a man in a dark suit, kissing him with a passion I hadn't seen from her in years. Her fingers were running through his hair, his hands were on her waist, and they were completely lost in each other, oblivious to everything else in the world. The man was Jake Morrison, my best friend since we were 17 years old. I stood there, frozen, the laptop still clutched under my arm, watching my wife kiss my best friend like they were the only two people left on Earth. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't hear the elevator doors open, didn't notice me standing there like a statue, didn't see their entire world about to come crashing down around them. Time seemed to slow down, every detail burning itself into my memory with crystal clarity. Amanda's new red lipstick, slightly smeared now. Jake's wedding ring glinting in the fluorescent hallway lights. The way Amanda's body curved into his, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The soft sound she made, a little moan of pleasure that I hadn't heard from her in months. How long had this been going on? How many late nights at the office were actually late nights with Jake? How many times had he sat in my living room, drinking my beer, talking about work and sports and life, all while carrying on with my wife behind my back? I should have charged out of that elevator, should have confronted them, demanded explanations, made a scene that would echo through that corporate tower for years to come. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to move, to act, to do something other than stand there like a fool. Instead, I quietly stepped backward and hit the button to close the doors. The elevator descended in silence, carrying me away from the wreckage of my marriage, away from the betrayal that had just rearranged my entire understanding of the world. I stood there, still holding Amanda's laptop, and felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest where my heart used to be. By the time I reached the parking garage, I was already making plans. I sat in my truck in the parking garage for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring at Amanda's laptop like it was a bomb that might explode at any moment. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure rage that was building up inside me like steam in a pressure cooker. 30 minutes. That's how long I decided to wait before I started making phone calls. 30 minutes to let them finish whatever they were doing up there, to let them think they were safe, to let them believe their secret was still secret. 30 minutes to plan exactly how I was going to destroy both of their lives. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over Amanda's name. 47 missed calls, the screen would probably show later. 47 desperate attempts to reach her husband, to explain, to lie, to somehow make this all go away. But I wasn't going to give her that chance. Instead, I scrolled down to a different name, Richard Castellano, Amanda's boss, the man who thought she had real potential and who was probably sitting in that conference room right now, wondering where his star employee was. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Richard Castellano. Richard, this is Nick Harlow, Amanda's husband. We've met a few times at company events. Oh, yes, Nick. How are you? Is everything all right? Amanda seems to be running a bit late for our meeting. I could hear the concern in his voice, the professional worry of a boss whose important presentation was falling apart. In about 30 seconds, he was going to have much bigger problems to worry about. Actually, Richard, that's why I'm calling. I need to tell you something, and I think you're going to want to hear this before your meeting starts. What's going on? I took a deep breath, feeling that cold calculation in my chest spread through my entire body. I just saw Amanda kissing another man in the hallway outside your conference room, a man named Jake Morrison. They were very intimate, very unprofessional. I thought you should know before you put her in front of any clients. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Nick, that's a very serious accusation. Are you absolutely certain about what you saw? I'm certain. I have photos. I didn't, not yet, but I would. The security cameras in that hallway had definitely captured everything, and I was betting Richard would want to see that footage very quickly. I need to look into this immediately. Thank you for calling, Nick. I know this couldn't have been easy. No, it wasn't. But I thought you deserved to know what kind of behavior is happening in your workplace. I hung up and immediately dialed the second number on my list. Melissa Morrison, Jake's wife of 6 years, a sweet woman who'd always treated me like family, who made the best chocolate chip cookies I'd ever tasted, and who deserved so much better than the lying piece of garbage she'd married. Hello? Melissa, it's Nick Harlow. I'm sorry to call you like this, but I need to tell you something about Jake. Her voice immediately changed, became smaller, more cautious. What about Jake? I just saw him with Amanda. They were kissing, Melissa. I'm so sorry, but I thought you should know. The sound she made was like air being let out of a balloon, a soft whoosh of pain and recognition. Are you sure? I'm sure. I saw them together at her office building. I have proof. I knew it. Her voice was barely a whisper. I knew something was wrong. He's been working late so many nights, and when he comes home, he smells like her perfume. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but I knew. Melissa, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. Neither do you. She was crying now, but there was something else in her voice, too. Something hard and determined, Thank you for telling me, Nick. I know this was hard for you, too. What are you going to do? I'm going to call my lawyer, and then I'm going to call Jake and tell him to find somewhere else to sleep tonight. After I hung up with Melissa, I called my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who'd handled the paperwork when I bought my contracting business a few years back. Patricia, it's Nick Harlow. I need advice about divorce proceedings. Oh no, Nick, what's going on? I explained the situation quickly, clinically, like I was describing a construction project rather than the end of my marriage. Patricia listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of understanding or sympathy. First thing you need to do is document everything, she said when I finished. Photos, dates, times, any evidence you can gather. Don't confront Amanda directly yet. Don't give her a chance to destroy evidence or come up with a story. And whatever you do, don't do anything that could be construed as threatening or illegal. What about the house? It's in your name only, right? From before the marriage? Right. Then you have the right to change the locks. You can pack her belongings and leave them somewhere safe, but you can't destroy them or throw them away. Be smart about this, Nick. Don't let your emotions make you do something you'll regret. After I hung up with Patricia, I drove home and got to work. I'd been a contractor for 15 years before I started my handyman business, and I knew how to work fast and efficiently when I had a job to do. Changing locks was a 20-minute job when you knew what you were doing. I packed Amanda's clothes carefully, methodically, folding everything neatly into suitcases like I was helping her prepare for a business trip. Her jewelry, her books, her collection of scented candles that made our bedroom smell like a flower shop. Everything that belonged to her. Everything that reminded me of the woman I thought I'd married. While I worked, my phone buzzed constantly. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. Amanda, probably realizing by now that her presentation was ruined, that Richard had seen the security footage, that her perfect little secret was exploding in her face. Jake, too, probably getting screamed at by Melissa, probably trying to figure out how everything had gone wrong so quickly. I didn't answer any of the calls. There would be time for conversations later, but right now I had work to do. By 3 o'clock, Amanda's belongings were neatly stacked on the front porch, covered with a tarp in case it rained. The locks were changed, the house was mine again, and I was sitting in my kitchen with a beer, waiting for the fireworks to begin. I didn't have to wait long. Amanda's car pulled into the driveway at 3:47 p.m., moving fast enough to leave rubber marks on the asphalt. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for a moment, staring at the pile of suitcases on the porch, probably trying to process what she was seeing. She tried her key first, jamming it into the lock and cursing when it wouldn't turn. Then she started pounding on the door, her voice rising with each word. Nick! Nick, open this door! We need to talk! This is ridiculous! I took another sip of my beer and waited. I know you're in there. Your truck is in the garage. Open the damn door. After about 10 minutes of pounding and shouting, she called the police. I watched through the window as a patrol car pulled up, and 2 officers got out to talk to her. Amanda was gesturing wildly, pointing at the door, at her suitcases, probably spinning some story about being locked out of her own home. I opened the door before the officers could knock. Good afternoon, officers. I'm Nick Harlow. This is my house. Sir, your wife says you've locked her out and put her belongings on the porch. She wants to know if we can help resolve this situation. I looked past the officers to where Amanda was standing by her car, her face red with anger and embarrassment. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, like someone who'd been caught in a lie and was trying to figure out how to talk her way out of it. Officers, Amanda is my wife, but she's been having an affair with another man. I have photographic evidence, if you need to see it. According to my lawyer, I have every right to ask her to leave my house, which was mine before we were married. Her belongings are packed safely and undamaged. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just don't want her in my house anymore. The officers looked at each other, then back at Amanda, who was opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. Ma'am, if the house is in his name and he has evidence of adultery, there's not much we can do here. This is a civil matter. You might want to call a lawyer. After the police left, Amanda tried one more time to talk to me through the door. Nick, please. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Jake and I, it was just a moment of weakness. It doesn't mean anything. I opened the door just wide enough to look at her. Amanda, I saw you. I saw the way you kissed him, the way you touched him. That wasn't a moment of weakness. That was a woman in love with someone who isn't her husband. That's not true. How long has it been going on? She couldn't answer, couldn't meet my eyes. Get your things and go, Amanda. We're done. I closed the door and went back to my beer, listening as she loaded her car with her suitcases, crying and cursing, and probably calling Jake to tell him their secret was out. By 6 o'clock, she was gone, and my house was quiet again. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The Bent Nail was the kind of bar that looked exactly like its name suggested. Crooked, rusty, and probably held together by nothing more than habit and stubbornness. It had been serving the working-class neighborhood for 40 years, through factory closures and gentrification attempts, through good times and bad. The kind of place where everybody knew your name, your drink, and your business, whether you wanted them to or not. I'd been going there since I turned 21, back when my biggest worry was whether I'd have enough money for rent and beer in the same month. Now, 17 years later, it felt like home, in a way my actual home didn't anymore. Big Al was behind the bar when I walked in, all 6'4" and 300 pounds of him, with arms like tree trunks and a smile that could light up a room. He'd been my foreman back when I was learning the construction trade, and he'd saved my ass more times than I could count. When he retired from construction and bought the Bent Nail, it seemed like the most natural thing in the world. Well, look what the cat dragged in, Al said, already reaching for a bottle of my usual beer. You look like someone who's had a day. You could say that. I took the beer and drank half of it in one long pull. Amanda and I are getting divorced. Al stopped wiping down glasses and gave me his full attention. What happened? Caught her with Jake Morrison, my supposed best friend. Al's face darkened. He'd never liked Jake, had always said there was something slippery about him, something that didn't sit right. That bastard. You want me to have a talk with him? Thanks, Al, but I've got it handled. In fact, I think tonight's going to be very educational for everyone involved. The bar was filling up with the usual crowd, construction workers, mechanics, a few teachers from the elementary school down the street, people who worked with their hands and didn't put on airs about it. These were my people, the ones who'd known me since before I had 2 nickels to rub together, who'd celebrated with me when I started my business, and who'd have my back when things got tough. I was on my 3rd beer when Amanda walked in. The whole bar went quiet, like someone had turned down the volume on the world. Amanda had never set foot in the Bent Nail before. It wasn't her kind of place. Too blue-collar, too real, too honest. She stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room until she spotted me at the bar. She was still wearing her work clothes, but they were wrinkled now, her makeup smudged, her hair messed up. She looked like someone who'd been crying in her car for hours, which she probably had. Nick, we need to talk. Her voice was loud enough for everyone in the bar to hear. I think we've said everything we need to say, Amanda. She walked over to the bar, her heels clicking on the worn wooden floor. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing my best friend behind my back? How you've been lying to me for months? How you forgot your laptop this morning because you were so excited about seeing Jake that you couldn't think straight? The bar was dead silent now, everyone pretending to mind their own business while hanging on every word. Amanda's face went white. You brought me my laptop? I wanted to surprise you. Thought I'd be the good husband, save your big presentation. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out I was the one who got surprised. Nick, please. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Why not here? These people are my friends. They deserve to know what kind of woman I was married to. Al set another beer in front of me and leaned on the bar. Sounds like your wife's been busy, Nick. Oh, she's been very busy. Haven't you, Amanda? All those late nights at the office, all those weekend work sessions, all those business trips with Jake. Very productive, I'm sure. Amanda's eyes were filling with tears, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, nothing but cold satisfaction. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake and I, we were working together on a project and we spent so much time together, and you and I, we'd been having problems. We'd been having problems because you were cheating on me. The door opened again, and Jake Morrison walked in. The timing was perfect, like he'd been waiting outside for his cue. He looked around the bar nervously, clearly as out of place as Amanda, his expensive suit and perfect haircut marking him as an outsider among the working-class crowd. Amanda, I've been looking for you everywhere. Melissa threw me out of the house and He stopped when he saw me. Nick. Hey, buddy. Listen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Buddy, I stood up from my bar stool, and the entire bar seemed to lean forward in anticipation. You think we're still buddies, Jake? Nick, let me explain. Amanda and I, it just happened. We didn't plan it. We didn't want to hurt you. But you did it anyway. Jake looked around the bar, probably realizing for the first time that he was surrounded by people who worked for a living, people who didn't have much patience for cheating husbands in expensive suits. Look, I know you're upset, but Amanda and I, we're in love. We didn't want it to happen this way, but sometimes these things just... He never finished the sentence. I hit him with a right cross that sent him stumbling backward into a table full of empty beer bottles. The crash was spectacular, glass flying everywhere, Jake landing on his ass in a pile of broken bottles and spilled beer. The bar erupted in cheers and applause. Al reached under the bar and came up with a baseball bat, but he was grinning like a kid at Christmas. Anyone else want to declare their love for Nick's wife? He asked the room. Jake struggled to his feet, his suit torn, his face bleeding from a cut on his cheek. You're crazy! I'm calling the police! Go ahead, said Tommy Rodriguez, one of the regulars. Tell them you got beat up for screwing your best friend's wife. See how much sympathy you get. Amanda was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. Stop it! All of you! Just stop it! This isn't helping anything. You're right, I said. This isn't helping. You know what would help? If you and Jake got the hell out of here and never came back. Jake was already heading for the door, holding his bleeding face, his expensive suit ruined. Amanda followed him, but she stopped at the door and turned back to me. This isn't over, Nick. I'm not going to let you destroy my life because you can't handle the truth about our marriage. The truth? I laughed. The truth is that you're a cheating whore who threw away 8 years of marriage for a piece of garbage in a suit. The truth is that everyone in this room has more integrity in their little finger than you have in your entire body. The truth is that you picked the wrong man to betray. She slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. Al poured me another beer and raised his own in a toast. To Nick Harlow, who just took out the trash. The whole bar drank to that, and for the first time in hours, I felt something like satisfaction. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Jake Morrison was about to learn what happened when you betrayed the wrong man. And Amanda was about to discover that some mistakes have consequences that last a lifetime. The real fun was just getting started. The next morning, I woke up with a clear head and a detailed plan. Amanda and Jake thought they'd seen the worst of what I could do to them. But last night at the Bent Nail was just the opening act. They'd humiliated me, destroyed my marriage, and betrayed 15 years of friendship. Now it was time to show them what real consequences looked like. I started with Jake's car, a silver BMW that he was more proud of than most people were of their children. He'd spent hours telling me about its features, its performance, its resale value, like owning an expensive car somehow made him a better person. It was parked outside the cheap motel where he'd apparently spent the night, probably because Melissa had changed the locks just like I had. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't slash his tires or break his windows or key his paint job. I was smarter than that. Instead, I called the city parking authority and reported an abandoned vehicle that had been sitting in the same spot for more than the legal limit. I called the health department and reported a strange smell coming from the car, possibly a dead animal. I called the police and reported suspicious activity around the vehicle, maybe drug-related. By noon, Jake's precious BMW was surrounded by official vehicles and covered in tickets and warnings. It would cost him hundreds of dollars in fines, and he'd have to prove the car wasn't abandoned or contaminated to get it back. But that was just the beginning. Next, I paid a visit to Amanda's parents, Frank and Linda Castellano. Yes, she'd taken my name when we married, but her father was Richard's cousin, which was how Amanda had gotten her job in the first place. Family connections, not talent or hard work. Frank answered the door in his bathrobe, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Nick, what are you doing here?" "I came to return something that belongs to you." I handed him a manila envelope thick with papers. "Every loan I've given you and Linda over the past 8 years, the money for your roof repair, the cash for Linda's medical bills, the down payment I helped you make on your car, it all adds up to about $37,000. Frank's face went pale. "Nick, you know we're good for it. We just need a little more time." "I know you're good for it, Frank. That's why I'm calling in the loans. All of them. Today. But we don't have that kind of money just sitting around." "Then you better start making some phone calls. Maybe Amanda can help you out. I hear she's between jobs right now." Linda appeared behind Frank, her eyes red from crying. "Nick, please. Amanda made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should punish us." "Linda, I've been supporting this family for 8 years. I've fixed your plumbing, repaired your car, loaned you money whenever you needed it. I did it because I loved your daughter, and I thought she loved me back. But it turns out I was just the bank, wasn't I? The reliable guy who paid the bills while Amanda looked for something better. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time Amanda visited you without asking for money? When's the last time she called just to see how you were doing? When's the last time she brought me to dinner without needing something fixed around the house?" They couldn't answer because we all knew the truth. Amanda had been using all of us, taking what she needed and giving back just enough to keep the gravy train running. "You have 30 days to pay back the loans," I said. "After that, I'll be forced to take legal action." From there, I drove to Amanda's office building. Not to see Amanda, she'd been fired yesterday along with Jake, but to have a conversation with Richard Castellano. Richard's office was on the top floor, all glass and chrome and expensive furniture that probably cost more than most people made in a year. He looked up when his secretary announced me, his face carefully neutral. "Nick, I have to say I wasn't expecting to see you again so soon. I wanted to thank you for handling the situation yesterday. It couldn't have been easy, firing your own cousin." Richard leaned back in his chair. "Amanda is my second cousin, actually, and it wasn't difficult at all. What she did was completely unprofessional and potentially damaging to our company's reputation. I can't have employees using our offices for personal affairs. I appreciate your professionalism, but I wanted you to know that there might be more to this story than what you saw yesterday." "Oh?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a series of photos I'd taken over the past few months. Amanda and Jake having lunch together. Amanda and Jake leaving her office building together. Amanda and Jake in Jake's car in a parking garage, clearly intimate. "This has been going on for months, Richard. They've been using your building, your conference rooms, probably your company time to conduct their affair. I thought you should know in case there are any legal or professional consequences you need to consider." Richard studied the photos carefully, his expression growing darker with each image. "How long have you been documenting this?" "I started taking pictures about 6 weeks ago, when I began to suspect something was going on. I never wanted to believe it was true, but the evidence kept piling up. And you're sharing this with me because Amanda has been representing your company at industry events, client meetings, professional conferences. If word gets out that she was conducting an extramarital affair on company time, in company facilities, it reflects poorly on your organization. I thought you might want to get ahead of that story. Richard nodded slowly. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Nick. We'll be reviewing our security footage and conducting a full investigation. If we find evidence of inappropriate behavior on company property, we'll take appropriate action. What he didn't say, but what we both understood, was that Amanda would never work in this industry again. Richard would make sure of that. My phone rang as I was leaving the building. It was Big Al. Nick, you need to get down to the bar. Jake's here, and he's drunk and making threats. I found Jake slumped over a table at the Bent Nail, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him. His face was still bruised from our fight the night before, and his expensive clothes were wrinkled and stained. He looked up when I walked in, his eyes red and unfocused. There he is, Jake slurred, the man who destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life, Jake. I just helped people see what you really are. You turned my wife against me. You got me fired. You ruined my car. I told the truth, Jake. That's all I did. If the truth ruined your life, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to screw my wife. Jake tried to stand up, swayed, and sat back down hard. This isn't over, Nick. You think you're so smart, but I know things about you. Things that could get you in trouble. What kind of things? Your business, your taxes, your contracts. I bet if someone looked real close at your books, they'd find some interesting irregularities. I sat down across from him, close enough that he could smell the anger coming off me in waves. Jake, let me explain something to you. I've been running an honest business for 5 years. My books are clean, my taxes are filed, my contracts are legal. But you've been cheating on your wife, using company resources for personal affairs, and lying to everyone who trusted you. So if you want to play the investigation game, I'm happy to play. But I guarantee you'll lose. Jake's face crumpled, and for a moment he looked like the scared little boy I'd known in high school. I loved her, Nick. I really loved Amanda. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of taking something that belonged to someone else. You loved the thrill of the secret, the excitement of the affair. But if you really loved her, you would have divorced your wife and I would have divorced Amanda, and we could have handled this like adults. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. But it did, and now you're going to live with the consequences. I left Jake sitting there with his whiskey and his regrets, and drove home to prepare for the final phase of my plan. Amanda and Jake thought they'd lost everything, but they were wrong. They hadn't lost everything yet, but they were about to. 3 days later, I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and reading the morning paper when Amanda called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Nick, we need to talk. Her voice was different now, smaller, desperate. The confident, manipulative woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who sounded like she was drowning. I thought we covered everything we needed to cover. Please, just meet me somewhere. Anywhere. I need to tell you something important. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, where neither of us had any history. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, like it was the only thing keeping her warm. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. This wasn't the polished, professional woman who'd left our house 4 days ago. This was someone who'd been broken down to her component parts and didn't know how to put herself back together. "Thank you for coming," she said when I sat down across from her. "What do you want, Amanda?" "I want to explain. I want you to understand why this happened." "I understand perfectly. You got bored with our marriage, you found someone more exciting, and you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. It wasn't like that. She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks unchecked. Nick, our marriage was dying. We both knew it. We hadn't been happy for months. So you decided to kill it completely instead of trying to fix it. I tried to fix it. I tried to talk to you, but you were always working, always busy with your business, always too tired to really talk about anything important. And Jake was a better listener? She flinched like I'd slapped her. Jake paid attention to me. He made me feel important, interesting, attractive. When's the last time you told me I was beautiful, Nick? When's the last time you really looked at me? When's the last time you gave me a reason to? We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 years of marriage and 4 days of destruction hanging between us like a toxic cloud. What do you want from me, Amanda? Forgiveness? Understanding? An apology for ruining your affair? I want my life back. Her voice was barely a whisper. I lost my job, my marriage, my friends. My parents won't talk to me. Jake won't return my calls. I'm staying in a motel room that costs $60 a night, and I can't afford it much longer. What about Jake? I thought you two were in love. Jake's gone. He left town yesterday. Took what was left of his money and disappeared. Didn't even say goodbye. I felt a moment of satisfaction. Jake Morrison, the smooth-talking charmer who'd stolen my wife, had turned out to be exactly what I'd always suspected he was, a coward who ran when things got difficult. So now you want to come back to me? I want to try. I want us to go to counseling, to work on our problems, to see if we can save our marriage. I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, this woman who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my future, and I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no hate, no anger, no sadness. Just a cold, empty space where my feelings for her used to be. Amanda, our marriage ended the moment you kissed Jake Morrison in that hallway. Everything that's happened since then has just been paperwork. That's not true. We can fix this. I know we can. No, we can't, because I don't trust you anymore, and I never will again. Because every time I look at you, I see you with your hands in his hair and your body pressed against his. Because you didn't just cheat on me, Amanda. You chose him over me every single day for months, and the only reason you want me back now is because he left you. She was sobbing now, her carefully constructed facade completely shattered. Please, Nick, I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. Wait, there's something else, something I need to tell you. What? I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow, stopping me cold. I sat back down, my mind racing through possibilities and timelines and implications. Is it mine? I don't know. She couldn't meet my eyes. It could be yours. It could be Jake's. I won't know until I can get a paternity test. When did you find out? Yesterday. I've been feeling sick for weeks, but I thought it was just stress from work. But when I missed my period, I stared at her, this woman who'd just told me she might be carrying another man's child, and I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not love, not forgiveness, but something darker and more complicated. What do you want from me, Amanda? I want us to wait, to see whose baby it is. And if it's yours, I want us to try again, for the baby's sake. And if it's Jake's, then I'll figure something out. But Nick, if this baby is yours, don't you think we owe it to them to try to work things out? I thought about it for a long moment, weighing my options, considering the possibilities. Then I made my decision. No. What? No, Amanda. Even if that baby is mine, I'm not taking you back, because a baby doesn't fix a broken marriage, and it doesn't erase what you did. If the baby is mine, we'll work out custody and support. But you and I are done. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. I left her sitting there in that coffee shop, crying into her cold coffee, and I didn't look back. Because I was done looking backward. I was done with Amanda, done with Jake, done with the whole toxic mess they'd created. But I wasn't quite done with my revenge. That night, I made one final phone call. To a friend of mine who worked for the local newspaper, a guy named Mike Santos who covered the business section and was always looking for a good story. "Mike, it's Nick Harlow. I've got a story for you about corporate misconduct and workplace affairs. You interested?" "Always. What have you got?" I told him everything. About Amanda and Jake's affair, about how they'd used company resources and company time for their personal relationship, about how Richard Castellano had been forced to fire both of them when the truth came out. I gave him names, dates, documentation, everything he needed to write a story that would ensure Amanda never worked in this industry again. "This is good stuff, Nick. Really good. But can I ask why you're giving this to me instead of keeping it private?" "Because some people need to learn that actions have consequences, and because I want everyone to know exactly what kind of people they're dealing with." The story ran 3 days later, front page of the business section. Corporate affair leads to dual firing at local tech firm. It had everything: the workplace romance, the family connections, the professional misconduct, the dramatic discovery. Amanda's name was mentioned 17 times. I never saw Amanda again after that coffee shop meeting. I heard through the grapevine that she'd left town, probably to start over somewhere else where nobody knew her story. I never found out whose baby she was carrying, and I never wanted to know. Jake Morrison never came back either. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in some small town in Florida, divorced and alone, and probably telling anyone who'd listen about how his life had been ruined by circumstances beyond his control. Melissa Morrison sent me a thank you card 6 months later, along with a photo from her wedding to a good man who treated her the way she deserved to be treated. She looked happy, really happy, in a way I'd never seen her look when she was married to Jake. As for me, I kept my business, kept my house, kept my friends at the bent nail. I dated occasionally, but nothing serious. I wasn't ready to trust anyone with my heart again, and maybe I never would be. But I was okay with that, because I'd learned something important about myself during those 4 days of revenge. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought, smarter than I'd given myself credit for, and more ruthless than I'd ever imagined I could be. Amanda and Jake had thought they were dealing with a simple, honest, predictable